I'd now like to welcome our first keynote speaker for this afternoon, who is Aline Humbert, who is Councillor for Higher Education, Education and Youth at the Permanent Representation of France to the European Union here in Brussels. Aline has been in this position for the last 2 years. Previously, she worked for 4 years at the European Commission's Directorate for Research and Innovation, where she managed the Research, Innovation and Science Expert Group, or the so-called RISE group, which some of you may know of and may remember. Prior to that, she's worked within the French public administration and has also held various strategic positions at French universities. Aline is here today to present to us the priorities of the French presidency of the EU Council related to higher education and research, and also to share with us France's view on the European strategy for universities. Because I know we have an international audience who may be less familiar with the workings of Europe, just to clarify that the French presidency of the European Union is basically the rotating presidency of the body where the member states are represented at the level of ministers, and France has just started at the beginning of this year with its 6 months presidency. Aline is currently chairing the Council's Education Committee, and so she's very much involved in the discussions around the European strategy for universities, and an excellent person to enlighten us today on the French view. So Aline, many thanks for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Amanda, and many thanks to the EAU for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to discuss actually now, yes, about first of our priorities, but also of our first view about the communication on the strategy for European strategy for university from the Commission. And indeed, it's a very topical topic and a moment to start discussing about that. The Education Committee will table this text together with the recommendations also published by the Commission on building bridges for European effective cooperation in higher education next week. And so we are just at the very start of the discussion, and I'm also looking for the negotiation and discussion within the Council. But to go back, when it comes to our priorities, let me first tell or remind, I don't know whether that the French presidency program is set up within the framework of the triptych recovery, strength, sense of belonging, presented by the President of the Republic. The ambition in terms of higher education, research and innovation are declined in 3 directions, presented this very morning by Mrs. Vidal, Minister of Higher Education, Research and Innovation, to the European Parliament. These 3 directions are promoting by strengthening synergies between higher education, research, innovation, and service to society, European knowledge policies that will support economic recovery and green and digital transitions. Affirm the international dimension of these policies in order to contribute to the deployment of European power in the world and to strengthen the attractiveness of Europe for teachers, researchers, and students. And third, deepen the feeling of belonging to Europe. Universities have a major role to play in transmitting the European way of life by removing obstacles to European mobility. These 3 objectives go through the achievement of the highest level of quality in its university, which should impose themselves internationally with the values of freedom and democracy, equality and solidarity, which form our DNA. In a few words, excellent in the service of citizens. To enable Europe to respond to the current challenges that question its place in the world, it's important to provide our universities with a framework conducive to that transformation, in particular by deploying the European Universities Initiative. Because strengthening the seats, the places where, with a view to attractiveness, is not enough. We must think of Europe as an ecosystem. the seats and places must be networked where people and ideas can circulate. European universities are, as such, an essential building block of European construction. At the initiative of France, they are now creating the feeling of belonging that Europe needs. Each alliance combines the attractiveness and excellence of its members with inclusive mobility. It's therefore necessary to secure these networks by perpetuating and deepening the alliances. European universities are also testbeds for the university of the future through new systems and innovative practices. To meet international standards, it's necessary to harmonize the recruitment of teachers and researchers, integrating the attractiveness of careers. The development of European campuses will promote the circulation of students and teachers within the alliances. Hybrid courses will contribute to the attractiveness of our higher education. The French presidency wishes to rely on alliances of European universities to strengthen and facilitate cooperation between all higher education establishments in Europe. This will involve facilitating the delivery of European diplomas, pooling the recruitment of researchers and professors, and or creating common structures for training and research. In this perspective, and in accordance and based on the communication of the strategy, the European strategy for universities, we will submit to the Council conclusions relating to a European strategy in favor of universities, which aims to give them the means to respond to the challenges of international competition, the green and digital recovery, the affirmation of European values, and the fact to strengthen the European dimension of higher education. In parallel with this strategy and with these conclusions, the French presidency will also conduct work on the recommendation for effective transnational cooperation between higher education establishments in Europe, which aims to give it a concrete footing. These two texts aim at establishing means and a framework for cooperation between institutions. Also aim at identifying the obstacles to be overcome in order to strengthen synergies and perpetuate European university alliances based on structural support. In the same spirit, we will also strive to advance work on the draft recommendation dedicated to environmental sustainability and on micro-credentials. In order to ensure convergence of views on the European strategy for universities and synergies between higher education and research, we organized an informal ministerial meeting on the 25th of January, just 2 days ago, between the European ministers in charge of higher education and in charge of research. It paved the way for dialogue with stakeholders in higher education, including European universities, of course, to encourage their commitment to its dynamic. In this very perspective, we also organized yesterday the first Forum of University for the Future of Europe, which made it possible to make an initial assessment of the pilot phase of the 41 European universities and to bring out new orientations for designing the university of the future. This forum will feed our next discussions on the effective implementation of the strategy. We hope that this kind of forum will regularly support the dialogue between all players in Europe, in the European higher education era, and in, of course, research era, with the member states and the Commission on the objectives to be set and the next steps to be taken. I will stop there in precising a bit our priorities, but let me just conclude that we're very happy to have this opportunity and to present not only our priorities, but the way we want to work together towards our common goals. Thank you very much.